You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 69, a revisit into music and sound. Today we talk about music and sound in games again. We improve upon our last episode around this subject. We discuss how to use music and sound and why that helps improve your games. Also, on June 2nd, there will not be an episode of this podcast that we'll be releasing. We are taking the week off. There are plenty of new episodes in the hopper, so stay tuned. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribe and we'll ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me in person once again, his sad scenes will have you crying from the music alone. Jared.
It's true. I mean, like, I've even got a little of a clump.
You put a lot of effort into choosing the soundtrack that you want to have that accompanies your games.
I do. I absolutely do. People might not think it, but music is actually rather pivotal to creating the appropriate atmosphere that you are going for. It can be both your best ally and your worst enemy. It really can. How it can be your worst enemy is if you use it inappropriately. Trust me, it can cripple a game. I mean, like, I think we relayed the story last time we talked about sound, but I have sat there while, like, you know, one of the GMs that I played under, you know, typically just through like SoundCloud or some music site on random and just let it go. And the problem is, you know, we were like in the middle of what was supposed to be a very sad scene. And, you know, we've got a song that can be probably best equated with like drug use.
Yeah. I mean, like it's like the EDM playlist that's happening in the background.
Yeah.
You're like, what is going on? Like, it's just haphazard and random. This would be something that you might do if you were playing like an online video game and you just wanted something on in the background, not to enhance your experience, but to fill up the void of no sound. And
that is something, you know, I would honestly recommend to our listeners, no sound rather than bad sound. I honestly would highly recommend that. If you're like, your plan is, I'm just going to flip the radio on and let it play in the background, I would highly recommend trying no music rather than that music. There are some simple things that you can do if music seems a little too complicated at the moment. So I'm gonna work their way up.
Okay, well, so before we get into that, let me tell you what the topic is if you haven't guessed now that we're talking about music.
Jesus, we've been talking about it for like 2 minutes already.
I know, but we had a music episode a while ago, and it was covering kind of music and atmosphere, and I looked back on it, and I was just like, we just basically talked about good songs to use. We didn't actually dive into why the music really helps set scenes and why, you know, how to really effectively make use of sounds to make the game better. So this is a revisit into music and sound in your games and how to incorporate them.
Do you feel better now that you've done the introduction?
I do. I feel a lot better.
And I'm the one with OCD.
I was sitting here, Jones, and I'm scratching myself. I'm like, Jared.
Like I said, I'm the one with OCD. Jesus. So yeah, back to walking your way up slowly. So I will tell you this, my foray into sound did not start really until the advent of iTunes, because iTunes allowed me on my computer to switch very quickly between different musics. Typically, what I would do is I would download a soundtrack to a movie. I would create a playlist. Usually these playlists, what I would do is I would label them via the emotion that I wanted my players to feel.
Which is great. It was a great way to organize things. You had them in like fight, background,
sadness,
fear, fun fight. You had all sorts of
tension,
fights, tension,
speed.
Yeah, all sorts of things like that were trying to convey emotions from the song itself. Now, we hadn't quite filled in exactly a good system of organizing and when to pick them. I know there was a lot of times when there was things that can trip you up with music is you're trying to find that perfect piece. You're like, I remember the one, and like you're searching for it for 5 minutes, and you're completely taking your players out of the zone.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a shitty thing. What I typically do before I know I'm going to have a certain scene in a game, I know it's coming up, I'll pre-plan my music. I'll write down the names of the songs that I'm going to use. I actually, when I create epilogues or narratives, I will typically put the song name in my narrative. So, it'll say, like, for example, Chief Thundercloud looks at you both. And right underneath it'll say, play Doomed in Despair. And literally I will click it then. I will find this before game. And then I will have a large collection just in the event that I need them in the spirit of the moment.
Sorry, I derailed you earlier.
No worries. But I mean, like, for example, if my players suddenly decide they are not going to kill the bad guy, they would rather capture him, right? And I decide the bad guy's going to run, I have chase music that's kind of just there. It can be used in all sorts of different chases. So creating playlists for emotions or scenes is great because it builds up an arsenal that you can access at a ready moment. But for those planned parts of narration, those really parts where you're trying to scare the hell out of your players, you're trying to make your players cry, you are entering the big bad fight, pre-plan that music, go through your music log and be like, okay, which song do I want? So that's the difference. There's on the fly and planned. When you start off, planning is easy. You can even do it through YouTube.
And my suggestion actually would be to start with planning. If you have gone from no music and you want to introduce some music, go into planning. Mm-hmm. Because planning, you can then say, I'm going to introduce this song. It has purpose when I introduce the song. It is going to help show this emotion in this scene, or it is going to try and make this fight more energetic. I know what's coming along. I've got the songs picked out, just like Jared said with the narratives there. You're at the end of your game, or you're at the part where they're about to encounter somebody in the middle of your game, and you've planned it out the week before. Introduce the music. And have it pre-planned. Now, if you are just starting off in the world of having sound included, you're kind of amateur. You want to build up that huge rack, right, of songs that are ready to go. So you've built your first playlist. It's death scenes, and you've added like 3 very sad songs to it. Okay? But it takes a while to build up that library. It does. It takes some serious time. It took you years to build the library.
And actually, with us moving to Roll20, it's still taking me a very long time to rebuild it.
Well, what's hard is that I forget a lot of the songs that we had on your old laptop with the iTunes.
Oh, I still got it.
Well, yeah, I know. But when I'm trying to create a story in Roll20 or whatever, and I'm using a YouTube ripper to get them into MP3s, and then put them up, and then put them into Roll20. Effectively, because we do use Roll20, we're just trying to find a shared player that is able to engage everybody. When everybody's in the same room, it's obviously very easy to use something like an iTunes or name your favorite song player effectively. Yeah. So, I mean, and it's good because you can set those things to play on repeat, and you can change them very easily and quickly back and forth. When you have to start uploading things into Roll20, for example, it's a pain, but it's worthwhile because when we have our online player who's Brian, or if you have a bunch of online players, it's just easy to share the music with that. And typically we just run like a quick sound check at the beginning of the game. Like this is a quiet song. This is a loud song. Set your levels. Make sure it's good.
That is key. Doing the sound check at the beginning of game when it comes to music. This is a loud fight song. This is a very quiet, sad song. The reason we do that is because if your online players have it cranked up to hear the very sad song,
the audience is now deaf.
The minute you play that loud one, they're going to be like, what? You're going to scare the shit out of them. So I do loud sound first and then soft.
You also want to do that to make sure that they turn their volumes down appropriately for the player that you're using as a shared player, because they don't want to be detracted from what you're saying as a GM. Because that is still the most important piece about storytelling and narrating is your storytelling and narration. The music is supposed to be a background piece.
It is.
It's like
in the background.
It's like in a movie, you're not saying they're like, what are they trying to say?
I have no clue, but the music is just kicking. Yeah. Unless you're Miami Vice, that movie totally just overplayed people's voices with the music. That whole movie's sound was
There's
fucked
a movie
up.
more recently that did that, where like the music was way too loud. Oh, I think it was in Tenet. People complained that the music.
I haven't seen that yet. I hear it's really good.
Was like crazy loud for the scenes. And so,
who's the director? He did
it's Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. He did that huge boom. You know,
yeah.
He loves that. He loves the tuba with a B flat, just blowing it out.
I mean, I like Tenet. Don't get me wrong, as a side, but it was weird. Okay, it was like,
so it's my kind of movie.
At the end of the movie, I still can't quite tell you why the big kind of timey plot piece that he incorporated was important.
I must watch this movie now. I will watch this movie and discuss with my brother. He will explain everything to me, in great detail. So do the sound check now. As you are stepping into the waters of the musical foray, here's what I recommend. Okay, because you're going to have to build up this library, and it's going to take time. And as Aaron and I said, first try the planned scenes. As you are moving into, I just always want background noise, some sort of music, something going. Background music's very hard to do. Now, but before you even venture into background music, here's what I started off with, which is atmospheric ambience. Okay? Because it can be left on for long periods. It does bring your players into the location. Now, sorry, what is atmospheric ambiance? Bar, tavern, ambiance. Type it into YouTube. Okay? City street ambiance. Type it into YouTube. Ocean waves. Okay? Just be careful because some of them
it's effectively white noise.
It's white noise, but it's white noise that has to do with your location. And there are only so many locations. You know, forest at midnight is pretty much the same as forest at day. You know, it's a forest. That's what I want. Howling wind. Okay, that's what I want. Now, if you're thinking, man, that's not really music-y, it's not really technical, No Country for Old Men. There's barely any music played in that entire film. I kid you not. I went back, I read it, and I was like, bullshit. I went back and watched the movie, and it's correct. There's like barely any music. It's like the sound of wind most of the time. It's just wind.
Interesting.
So look into that. The having ambiance music, you can find ambiance for anything. If you're sitting there going, I'm running a Star Trek game. Guess what? There is Star Trek ambiance. How do I know this? I have found it. Okay, where it sounds like the bridge of the Enterprise with a
or just cut that piece of this podcast and use that.
Blow me. They have Star Trek. They have Docking Station at Midnight. I kid you not, there is ambiances for everything because people are weird with what they have to fall asleep to. I have literally found plain white noise, like aircraft white noise. I don't know who the hell finds the sound of a jet engine soothing before they fall asleep. I don't. I mean, I can. I tolerate the noise, but I'm not like, oh, an aircraft. I mean, my knees start to hurt. That's what I get when I hear that sound. My knees aching. I'm 6 foot. Like, I do not fit well into aircraft. Hell, if you're 5'8", you don't fit well into aircraft. I mean, you don't. Although I did get upgraded business class recently. That was pretty nice.
I know. You told me all about the experience.
Just getting beat to death by a stewardess. She did. She knocked me 15 times before she was like, I am so sorry, sir. Can I upgrade you to business class? Like, you calling me fat?
That's not what you said.
That's not what I said. I said, yes, please. Thank you. Are you kidding me? God, yes. Helps when you also have a lot of miles. But back to sound. So the ambiances are really a beginner's thing because it can be switched very quickly. And it can really, you can find ambiance for anything.
They're easy to find.
They're easy to find. They're easy to rip, and you don't have to do any editing. You're not going to have because soundtrack. What I'm doing now, I'm really advanced in the game. I'm sound engineering certain.
Well, we're going to get to that part.
We're going to get to that. But with Ambiance, you don't have to do that because
you find a track, you make sure that it's not obnoxiously long, like a 50-hour, thing that's played.
50 hours.
Huh? Well,
I don't care if it's 50 hours. Let it be 50 hours.
Well, if it's 50 hours, you can't upload that into a player.
Now I see your point. Yes.
Okay. Make sure it's a reasonable size that it works with whatever you're trying to, whatever medium you're trying to portray your sound in. And again, if you're in person, you can just simply play the YouTube videos. Obviously, you run into problems with ads popping up, which is why we would recommend converting them into the MP3 player, putting them into a player of some sort.
Yeah.
But, in a crunch, that's not a terrible place to be. You could have an ad pop up, and then you just...
And if your friends are being unreasonable about that, all right, you guys buy me the software. Now, you can find freeware. I mean, I've got it for free where I just download them from YouTube, and I have sound now. So that's the next step is ambiance with planned music. Okay. So now we're walking a little bit further into the.
And the good thing with the planned music and why you want to start there is that helps build your library of background consistent music, on the fly music that you have. Okay. Because right now at the top of your head, you're probably thinking, boy, what is good music? Okay, think about any medium that you engage with that has music associated to it, like movies, television shows, video games, whatever. I think that's probably most of the mediums, but any medium that does that, and say, I like that. You can typically find an OST for a movie and a video game. Quite easy to do. TV shows a little bit more challenging because TV shows, you're dealing with like a sound producer building custom sounds sometimes for those TV shows. So you can't always find those. And that sucks because there's a lot of TV shows that actually have pretty decent soundtracks to use. But it's not an available soundtrack that you can clip out. So unless you're one step further than we are, where you can grab a scene, isolate the music, and pull that out.
and that's where we're coming up to. So the next step that I'm welcoming you into, so you're still building this library, you got your ambiances going. Now your players are getting used to just sound always at the same time. Like, oh, I've always got sound. Now I'm going to welcome you into the world of background music. Background music can be difficult, okay? It is not an easy step to take. It's not. Now you got this library that's building. You've got your ambiances that are taking your main forms. Now you're moving into background music. Now, there are several games that Aaron and I always pick for background music, like Resident Evil Save Room. Oh my God, that's been one of our staples for 1,000 years.
If you look at the iTunes player, it's probably played 3,000 or 4,000 times.
I mean, it's just kind of, level, it's even, there's no real ups, there's no real downs, and it just loops and loops and loops. Good background music should be that. It should be even. It should be just able to very easily loop.
You don't want it to crescendo at the end and then come back into something weird.
Exactly. And that's where we're going to move into our last step, which is audio engineering. But this is, make sure it doesn't have crescendos. Make sure it's just got that nice even keel. So what you're going to start doing is you're going to start developing that background music. And that background music can then replace some of your ambiances. Now, Aaron came up with a great method when it comes to sound, which is every scene, change the music.
Yes, because otherwise what you're sitting there doing is you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. And then it people drown it out. It's like white noise. You stop listening to it. You stop understanding what the purpose of it is. And then when you change it, it doesn't have as much of an impact. It's just, most of the time, it's just there to annoy you. So if you have a background song, okay, like Jared said with the Resident Evil save theme, which we use a lot, that isn't the only background music that I have. I always have a couple others to cycle through. Mm-hmm. Okay. And even if you're taking a long scene, the scene's taking an incredibly long time to do what you're doing. You're in an investigation. You've been walking them through the castle for an hour. Okay. Change the music at some point.
Just change it.
Just change it. You don't have to explain why you're changing it. Just change it. And the reason why you change the music is so that they don't get lulled into this, like, oh, there's just sound in the background. I don't
like, oh my God, it won't stop. My players have actually told me, like, flat out, like, Jared, we've had the same song for like 3 hours now. Can we change the music?
And it's very hard to stay aware that when the scene is there to change the music, because a lot of times you'll know that you have the music playing, you'll change scenes, and you forget to change the music. And then you get lulled into the sense, and then when you actually need to change the music, you want to change it for a specific purpose, you've totally lost track. You forgot that you were supposed to change it 4 times by now. Like, there was a whole other scene where you had a way better song and you had it planned out that way. Like, it's purposeful to change the music every time. It gives the player not just the sense that the music is important, but it also gives the player a sense that the scene has changed. Something has changed. The game is progressing. It's something I need to pay attention to. And it also then makes it even more impactful when you're going into that background kind of music. Things are just kind of la, 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 la in the background. And then all of a sudden, you turn on, the players pull open the bookcase and they pull off this one tome and they open it up to page 376, and then you change the music to something super ominous and scary. And you're like, they're like, oh my God, what's going on? And everybody starts to get that sense of fear. You understand that not only have I, without having to explain anything, I've immediately raised your tension level by doing that. I've immediately made you go, hey, you're aware that the sound has changed, and I've let you know what sort of emotion is being conveyed in that sound change, which is, I'm letting you know this is scary. This is something that's terrifying. I don't need to tell you it's scary. You know because you've heard it.
It's like Stephen King says, don't tell me, show me. And that's what music does. You don't tell them that this is frightening. I'm showing you it's frightening.
If somebody has to tell you something is scary in a game, they are not doing a good job of outlining the detail of what makes it scary, or they are not setting up the mood and the atmosphere for the situation to let you know it's scary. Because I shouldn't have to tell you something's weird. Okay, I should.
You should know something's weird.
You should know something's weird, but without music, you have to be an excellent, very, very good at giving detailed explanations that make the thing sound creepy. With the music, I would almost say in a way it's a little bit. I call it a tool. You might call it a crutch. The music can let you know this is scary because the music is scary.
And music is a fantastic tool because it reaches so deep into the human heart. I mean, like, honestly, there's some songs that I've put on that just, oh my God, they make me cry every freaking time, or they make me happy every time. Music is so powerful, and that's why you want to kind of work this way through your thing until you get to the highest.
I mean, again, Jared's right. Music is incredibly powerful as a tool for you as a GM to convey the emotion of a scene. Do not understate it. This is why I felt it was necessary to talk about it one more time and bring it back up, and why we've brought it up in so many previous episodes. It just there was a scene in our long-standing werewolf game where Jared did a callback. Is called War of Our Fathers. We went back to World War II, Berlin Wall, just after World War II.
Just after. Cold
War. And we were helping people escape from East Berlin into West Berlin.
Correct.
And that was the mood of the game here. And one of the big bad guys in the werewolf world is Pentex. Okay. And in the past, one of the guys was the head of Pentex at the time, the CEO or the CFO, one of the C-level people.
C-level.
We had encountered him in the past, and we knew about him. He's widely publicized, well-known. Well, one of our missions in War of Our Fathers was to bring him across from East Berlin into West Berlin. And so we knew what was going on, and Jared got us at the end of it where, they came and took him, and he was playing the Black Hawk Down theme with it. And I was like, there was a level of being dejected. Like, I understand that you have to take him from us because this is how the story progresses. Fate sort of happens in the way that it happens. It wasn't a loss like Jared stonewalled us.
No.
But the music put so much more emotion to it. It was like the dramatic irony of knowing who he becomes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the music of like sheer loss in that moment. I mean, it's crushing. There's so many times when if you have somebody die, somebody you want to have an impactful death, you can put that very sad song to underwrite their death or as they're going out. And your players, I mean, just to think about a sad scene in a movie when you lose somebody, when somebody dies and goes on and is giving their last stand, or they're taking arrows in the battlefield. And you can put that last scene, you can play with like time and space, and the music lends to that emotion and slows everything down. It kind of grasps everyone. It levels everyone. It keeps them from making dick jokes and fart jokes during your really impactful scene.
It does.
Because if you put the music on at the right time, it really grasps them and focuses them into what you're about to say to them. And I mean, it's such a powerful tool for all those things. And I mean, we're going to talk into this next part of what do you do when you don't have the perfect music, or you've got clips of the perfect music, and that's when you go into leveling up your music game, and that's what Jared has done.
Yes, and here's my caveat to everyone. What we're not going to do on this podcast is explain how to audio engineer. There are many YouTube videos, so much free information out there on how to learn how to use one of the audio engineering software. There's free software. Audacity's free, and it's like the number one audio engineering.
It's what we use for our
podcast. So I'm not going to go into how to actually do that. What I'm going to do is introduce what you should look for. So, for example, Gladiator has a fantastic soundtrack. Russell Crowe, Gladiator. There's one specific soundtrack track in there. I think it's called Elysium. It's the song when Gladiator's going through the wheat, and it's sad, it's morose, but peaceful at the same time. It is just a beautiful combination of sound. The problem is that movie or music in major motion pictures is designed to flow with what's happening on the screen. So if there's a sudden flash of him getting, I don't know, killed or something, suddenly there's going to be a spike in the music with some terrifying, and then back to peaceful, because you know what, that the death is behind him. He's okay now. You got to clip that out, because I can tell you might love that sound. You might love that track, but that spike, if you think that your players are going to just ignore it, they're not going to hear it, They are, and it is going to break it. Because you are going for a scene of beauty, and suddenly you get this spike of terrifying music. Your players are going to be off cue. They're going to be like, what the hell? Oh, okay. It's not bad. It's not bad. Okay, we're good. We're cool. So you really, what you'll end up doing when you reach the highest level of audio, so you've got a huge library done. You've figured out background music, how to switch music. You've got your ambiance music just in case. You've got everything, and now you're moving into those advanced where you're beginning to audio engineer your own things. That is awesome. And when you get to that point, it's fantastic, and it's very gratifying, the amount of work that you'll put in to create a planned scene. Now, I don't try to audio engineer music for on the fly. I audio engineer music for specifically planned scenes. That's what I aim for. So for those of you going on that journey, I wish you the best of luck. You know what I mean? Because a lot of it's luck and a lot of it's skill, but it does take a lot.
It's like the 1% of like the 99% of it is just having a lot of music to be able to play.
Yes.
And then the 1% of it is like, I want to find something really special to incorporate for this scene.
Like, for example, I loved, I had a scene where Aaron and Brian's characters were meeting a god. So I took I love Batman versus Superman. I don't care what anyone else has to say about it. You can go ahead and email us, chat us, whatever, say it's a horrible freaking movie. I'm not going to listen to you. It's great. It's film cinema history, in my personal opinion. Okay, I'll admit it. It's never going to win a Golden Globe. It's actually not that great of a movie, but some of the quotes in that movie just rattle my spine in a good way. So I clipped out like that opening boom and the big bass in it. And I was able to provide that to my players, and it sounded fantastic. So when you're doing that prep for the moment, know what you're going to play, and then eventually make sure that you know what you're going to play next, because most moments inside a soundtrack are brief. They're maybe a minute 40, 2 minutes. Be ready for what you're going to play next, because it's not going to last, and you can't have that opening thunder clash come back around in the loop, because you're, oh my God, what's happening now? Is another god coming down? No. Sorry, that's just the loop. Know what you're going to play next. Whether or not you start building your own soundtracks, that's pretty cool. But I did want to move on to the next topic, which is, for me, it is sound effects.
I was actually going to talk about sound effects, specifically when you go around. One of the things that we like to do, or that we have used as an effective storyteller tool at our table, has been the players are, in the dark forest. They're in the dark cavern. They're in the dark house. The music stops. I stop the music, and I go, you hear in the distance, and then I click the monster roar. Okay. And the monster roar is excellent to freak out your players, or whatever animal, scariness you want to do there. We've heard the like a hooting owl in the background, and or like a horse scream. There's all sorts of terrifying sounds that you can throw in there.
Now, they're real.
And what's really, really important though when you do this is either get into the audio engineering game to clip out exactly the soundbite you want, or know that the sound is going to come up right at the beginning and then cut the sound. Okay? Only do it once. It is a very short thing. You don't want it to repeat. You don't want it to replay. This is from experience. I'm going to tell you this right now. The impact is the initial sound. They don't need to hear it again. They need to hear the initial sound.
Exactly, and that's what needs to haunt them. Now, monster growls, fantastic. I've used them. I still use them. Go to nature. Seriously. Look up the creepiest animal sounds that you can find. There are some creatures that make the weirdest freaking sounds. And if you are doing your monster correctly, a moose can scare the bejesus out of your players if they know that is the representative sound of whatever darkness you have created from your imagination and are befacing them. Okay? I have literally scared my players with deer noises, okay? People don't know what a deer sounds like, but when it makes a howling sound, but when it's attached to the Wendigo, that deer sound is terrifying. It has to be attached to something. So don't rely solely on that sound to make the monster. The monster has to be made in combination with your narrative, with the actions that it takes, with the way that it hunts. Your monster needs to be completed. It can't be all entirely done with a good creepy. It's amplified by a good creepy noise, but it is not made by a good creepy noise.
And I guarantee you, if you do play like a D&D game, you can certainly find monster noises and sounds on YouTube. Again, this is something that is easy to find.
Totally easy.
Sound effects for these things are easy to find. But like I do say is you don't want this to repeat. It's not supposed to replace music. It's not supposed to replace that ambient sound that Jared talked about earlier. It is supposed to be a moment in time to kind of heighten your awareness of your players, okay? Yep. You might not be trying to scare them, but you might be trying to get them on their toes. They're looking around now. They don't see the dragon on the map, okay?
But they hear it.
They know there's a dragon.
And it might have the effect of, in some of you might be going like, well, this only works for scary stuff. No, it doesn't. If your guys love just beating the shit out of dragons and you want to get them amped up for the fight, play a dragon noise and they're going to be like, oh my God, we hear it. And they run off down the hall.
Yeah, you can do it in so many different ways. We tend to use it to instill fear and dread into one another.
Yes. But that's who we are. We try to scare each other.
That's who we are. We try to tell kind of scary stories in that regard and try to really make that point like, oh my God, I'm going to die. The Wendigo is going to eat me. Or oh my God, there's a dragon in this cave. It's going to eat me.
It's going to eat me.
Okay. But you can do so many things. I mean, my character in our current game, the character is closely related to death. One of the things that the character can do is step into like a sideways plane that is like the realm of the dead, effectively. Mm-hmm. And when I did that for the first time, Jared had a song queued up right away for it to represent the difference between the normal world into that scary world, into that moment of like, you are in the land of the dead. You are walking amongst them. You are not safe here.
No, you are not. No, you're not. I actually have plans for it. So, but moving on. Don't worry about that. So sound effects now. Other good sound effects are ones that, again, are those punctuation points, pivotal points. They put a dot in something. They represent something before it happens. It doesn't make the scene again. So, for example, if you're doing a Star Wars game, there's nothing wrong with playing the lightsaber opening up scene right before you play your fight, right before they fight the big Sith, right? Nothing wrong with them saying they draw out their lightsaber. I can't make that noise. But, in going that way. Here's what I do recommend against. I've tried it. I've lost. Trying to have sound effects for like shattering windows and like, a gunshot, because you're stopping your play to literally play a sound that one, mics don't really pick up that well. They sound cheesy. Okay. Cause like a gunshot when it's being fired at you does not sound like what it sounds like on audio recording. It sounds like like a snap of a belt.
Yeah, you're better off saying you hear a gunshot ring out.
Yeah, you hear the snap right next to your ear.
Because let your players harken back to whatever movie they want to hear a gunshot from. Let your players fill some of those sounds. There are some sounds that are better to have your players fill in the blank because we know what they sound like. Yeah. Like glass shattering. You know what glass shattering sounds like, but it doesn't sound good coming across.
It doesn't. Every time like I hear the glass shattering sound effect, I'm just like, really? Because you hear it in B-rated movie or B-rated, but B-level movies where, I take him, the hero throws the guy through the window and it is the same one that you heard from, Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, sound effects can be used for funny moments. Just remember that. There is nothing wrong if you're playing a Star Wars game from using the "Wah!" sound effect when they do something cool. Don't overuse it. Use it as a punctuation point. You know, we're fighting stormtroopers. I kick this guy off the ledge. Ah! It's that classic one. I forget what it literally has a name. Like it's something scream. That harkens back to the theme of the actual game. You know, so I don't advise using the from Star Wars in a Star Trek game unless there's some sort of crossover event that you're kind of doing. Like I kind of want them to get the feel of a Star Wars game. Like
again, we're pretty sparing with sound effects. We are more of a soundtrack type table. But if you're, again, you can experiment with it. We just have not found a lot of great, because again, typically it's the sound that people know.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone knows what thunder and lightning sound like. Do I need to do a thunder and lightning sound to put it across to you?
And instead, do an ambiance. Thunderstorm at night, ambiance. There you go. It'll have plenty of thunder, plenty of lightning, and the sound of rain. Now, what's really creepy is when there's thunder and lightning and no rain. I find that weather creepy as fuck. I don't like that. I don't like when there's thunder and lightning, but there is no rain. Because being from the Midwest, that says tornado. That's all it screams to me is there's about to be a touchdown. But no, when it comes down to sound effects, use sparingly and use only in situations that it amplifies the scene. And as Aaron said, use once and discard. Don't
go back to your ambiance at that point, or go back to your soundtrack right after that.
Yep.
And go to the soundtrack that you want to convey after that moment. Typically, if you're going to do like a monster roar, you're not going to go back to like the dinner party music that you had playing before. No.
I mean, honestly, if you want to have a scene where everyone's at a dinner party and then a monster interrupts it, the better scene is you got your dinner party music, you know, the violin going, dun, 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 zun, 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 zun. And then the monster roar, and then cut all music. Way better than going back to, because the violins are going to stop.
Yeah, nobody else is going to be like we didn't all hear that.
Violinists are like, I'm getting paid by the hour, motherfucker. Like, excuse me.
Getting paid by the minute.
One thing I do want to also tackle is, sorry, I just kicked my mic thing right there, and that hurt a little bit. Is modern music. Okay? Modern music is a game that I have started walking my feet into.
Music with words
is so hard.
I would strongly advise that you get away from music with words. The way that Jarrett has incorporated modern music is he has found instrumentals of the modern music.
Yes.
So we know what the song is. They're very popular songs, but I'm not distracted by the words. And again, the reason why I say don't use the words is because the words that you speak should be building the scene, not the words of the music.
Exactly. And you might go, oh man, but that's only instrumentals or it's only acoustical. Incorrect. I have cracked this code. I've gone, how the heck? Because, like, for example, we had a game that was centered around a casino, right? So the bad guy was ultimately a casino owner. I wanted, a little less action, a little more conversation by Elvis Presley, right? Got to have it. That's quintessential gambling music. How do you do it without words? One word. Karaoke. Yeah. I kid you not. If you go online and if you look it up, you will find thousands of songs that you want played in your game that have no audio. And your players will think you're a goddamn magician. Trust me, if you are listening to this and none of your players are listening to your podcast, well, please share, but keep this one for yourself. When they hear a little less conversation, a little bit more action, but with no freaking words, they're going to be like, how did you do this? Don't tell them karaoke. Be like, my special thing. No, tell them. Share.
Share. You want them to be able to use it in their game.
Exactly. You want them to
spread the wealth.
Spread the wealth. But your players will look at you like a magician. Because Aaron is so correct when it comes down to one misplaced word, and you're just like, For example, this is my best example. The Fray, it's an old song. It's called How to Save a Life, right? If you listen to that song with words, it's about, informing somebody else of, I know how to save a life. Somebody's dying and I'm going to do my best to save them as far as I remember. If you are putting it in a game but the chords behind it are freaking tier-worthy chords. I mean, like, they do a great job with just being like, I can save life. I can do it. Trust me, unless you're seeing matches that, we're trying to save a life, it won't work. But if you just go with an acoustic or a karaoke version, it works out magnificently. And it's a trick to the trade that, trust me, I wish I had known a decade ago, 2 decades ago. I wish I had known. But, that is the trick when it comes down to modern day music. Sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes you can't.
There's a couple ones, typically if you're doing like a really energetic fight.
Yeah, like
Black Betty,
The Boys Are Back in Town for a good old-fashioned bar fight, because we all know those songs,
They tend to accompany fights in movies. People associate those types of songs with that action in movies.
I mean, come on. The Boys Are Back in Town, that is meant for a bar fight. Like, yes. Seriously. I swear, if you ever meet me in a bar and you're going to be like, I'm going to fight you, I'm going to walk over to the jukebox first and be like, excuse me for a second. Do they have Boys Are Back in Town? Nope, no Boys Are Back in Town. Sorry, we can't do this here. Can we go to another bar?
I'll fight you the one down the street. I know they've got it.
I know they got it there. Give the audience a show. I was literally in a bar and the guy started playing The Boys Are Back in Town before he got his ass kicked.
Put it on repeat 10 times.
They put it on repeat. Literally, the guy had him in an arm bar and they had him walk him back over to the jukebox so he could play it again. I've actually been in a bar where somebody played a song on repeat. I think it was my boss, and he was a little inebriated at the time. He played, he had like it stacked up 10 in a row, and I'm like, holy shit. Step away from the jukebox, sir.
But yeah, you have anything else you want to add to this one?
No, I think I've gotten what I wanted to say and how to help, and I think our listeners have a good step to how to really bring music into their games.
And I think that we redeemed the last music episode.
I think we did too.
Well, anyways, that's going to wrap it up for Jared and myself. If you have any thoughts on music, if you use music in your games, if you like our ideas with it, disagree with some of the things, let us know. You can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or comment on the episode at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can also send us requests for episode topics that you want to talk about, or comment on an old episode. But again, if you know some people who also are into the hobby, go ahead and share this podcast with them. Share them with anybody else that you know that likes this sort of stuff. And we want to make more experienced GMs, improve the community, lift people up. So please do that. Rate, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And we are on YouTube, so
dun 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 dun. Smash that like button. Dun 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 dun. Smash it right now.
Thank you, Jared.
There for the music episode.
And that's going to wrap us up for the week. So for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone.